Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Elizabeth Elliott, your local real estate expert here in Jacksonville, Florida. I am here today with my broker from Roundtable Realty, Howard Flaschen, and he is going to be diving into the NAR lawsuit settlement with me today. Thank you for being here, Howard. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you here. He has been in real estate almost all the way back to the 1900s. Like, gosh, that was so long ago.
Technically.
Almost this entire century he's been in real estate. So thank you so much for lending your expertise to us today.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Okay, so there's a lot of misinformation out there as far as the NAR lawsuit goes. And the big one out there is, yay, I don't have to pay my agent anything anymore. And or now as a seller, I don't have to pay commissions for half of the size, and I'll be able to save a lot of money. So Howard, how will buyer's agents get paid now?
Okay, so first, lots to cover in that question. It's very broad. But in essence, I think it's important to note first and foremost is that commissions have always been negotiable. There has never been an industry standard. You even see some articles on the heels of the settlement coming out and quoting numbers and saying that they are the standard, and that's just simply not the case. There have always been brokers who will just put a home in the MLS for $500. There have always been brokerages that do rebates. Shoot, one of the biggest brokerages, Redfin, has always offered rebates. So it's just not the case that there's always been this standard commission and it hasn't been negotiable. It has. One of the facets of the lawsuit and settlement was the argument that buyers have always been subsidizing the commission from the seller to the buyer's agent through inflated home prices. Okay. And there's just so much misinformation about that. And not just misinformation, but honestly, conflicting information from government entities.
Right. Even Joe Biden was out there saying, like, we can finally negotiate on commissions. And it was like, he doesn't even know.
Right. And it's our job, our income, you could say, for us to negotiate our income with a potential seller who, through that negotiation, understands that their listing broker may be investing a portion of the commission that they've negotiated if the home were to go to closing by investing half or a portion of that commission through the MLS, or it doesn't even have to be the MLS, but it could be marketed elsewhere, to invest that money in having cooperative compensation with a buyer's agent who might have their website with 30,000 buyers in their database. And there's 10,000 plus realtors just in Northeast Florida. So if I take a listing from someone and I, through negotiation, come up with a number that makes sense for them and makes sense for me, and then I decide to invest a portion of that into the marketplace of real estate agents, I'm exponentially growing that seller's reach in who they're going to be able to potentially see their home, potentially make an offer on their home, and get price discovery. But there's just been so much misinformation. Like, for example, one of the things you mentioned is, how is a buyer's agent going to get paid? That actually doesn't change. A seller can, through their listing broker, offer to pay the listing broker and see in the listing agreement that they sign that that listing broker is going to invest that money in a cooperative potential compensation with a buyer's agent who's out there. A seller who decides to go it alone and for sale by owner can offer to pay a buyer's agent. There's, just like there was before, there's innumerable ways for a seller to pay to have their home marketed the way they see fit.
And then what's the downside if they're like, okay, they bring me on to list their house and they're like, we're only going to pay you your portion. We don't want to pay a buyer's agent. How would you answer that question if you were in my shoes?
To be fair, I would say to a seller who's thinking along those lines and looking to save anywhere between 1.5% and 3% or 3.5% or 4%, depending where you are in the country, by not investing that money in the marketplace to potentially get that extra exposure, you have to understand that price discovery right? Price discovery is about having buyers see a home. We're talking about homes specifically, but it really goes with anything. See a product, determine what that product is worth to them, and then the seller knows whether or not it made sense. If you're making a widget and you make 1,000 widgets and you price it at a nickel and they're gone in an hour, maybe you priced it too low. If you make the same widget and put it on the shelf for $7 and it sits there for a year, then you overpriced it. But if there's no buyer for your widget just because it's a bad product, then you don't know what it's worth at all. And so our job as a real estate agent, when you take that listing and someone says, well, I don't want to incentivize buyers agents and even buyers if I'm going to pay their, pay some of their closing costs. If I don't want to incentivize any of that exposure or that marketplace experience, then they're not going to get price discovery, and they're certainly not going to sell their home as fast for as much money. So where they think they might be saving 1.5%, 2%, 3%, 4%, I would argue you're probably going to lose more than that in regards to not having buyers.
85% of buyers, 85% of buyers have their own agent, and also I want to say it's something like 41% of those buyers are first-time home buyers, and so not only do they not have equity that they're sitting on a home that they could sell and pay their agent with, they're relying on those sellers to help cover those costs. And by not offering to pay a buyer's agent, you are now eliminating 85% of buyers out there that do not have the means to be able to pay their agent. So you're really limiting yourself.
And so the plaintiffs in the case would argue, okay, so the first-time home buyer or the military member who isn't even allowed to have an agent and pay for them themselves.
Right, that's a whole caveat we need to get into.
And we will, but those two categories of people, typically maybe a first-time home buyer using an FHA loan or a VA buyer who isn't allowed to pay a commission, and these wonderful home buyers can afford a home, they just struggle on the upfront costs. The plaintiffs would be saying to them, well, you just go directly to the listing broker. The problem is in many states that's illegal, could be considered dual agency. In the state of Florida, you can transition to be what's called a transaction broker, but as a transaction broker, you're not supposed to be looking out for them. And so the first-time home buyer who needs the expert advice more than anyone, or our military, who needs an agent who can help them navigate the process.
And always moving to a new town where they don't know anybody.
Unfortunately, they have just been left in the lurch, and they are going to be walking into buzzsaws, because in this state, if somebody's agent is representing the seller with loyalty or as a single agent, and somebody comes direct to me, I am statutorily directed by the state constitution to look out for my seller. And so that buyer coming to me, they're going to be negotiated hard against because I have to look out for my seller. And that's just a shame. It shouldn't be like that. And like I mentioned before, you have government entities just this week, Fannie and Freddie, come out and say, in essence, a seller can pay for a buyer's agent, and that concession will not count against the maximum allowable concession a seller's giving because, and it was their own words, sellers have always paid commissions. But the case that went in front of the jury, they argued buyers pay commission, and the DOJ sent a letter in stating that buyers have done that it's been inflated and sellers shouldn't have had to pay for that because it's inflated costs, and because of this settlement, prices are going to drop, which that's not going to happen at all. Not one seller out there has said, oh, I'm going to lower the price of my home 2% because of the settlement. Isn't going to happen. No. And so in essence, what you're left with is one hand of the government saying that sellers are paying, one hand of the government saying that buyers are paying.
And the president saying, we can negotiate now.
And we always could. It's just such a shame because, they basically let a bull loose in a china shop. They're breaking everything, and then they're going, oh, wait, we didn't know that was going to break. Oh.
If you're liking this video so far, remember to like, share, subscribe, and follow, and keep on watching for more good info.
Part of the plaintiff's argument was they wanted more transparency. Well, a year ago, the MLSs had agreed to put all of the commissions on all of the websites. Every single website that gets their data from the MLS would have all of the commissions. talk about 100%
Very
transparency,
yeah.
right?
Now there's
Well,
none.
now they said, no, we don't want commissions on the MLS at all. And they're like, okay, well then we're just going to take all the commissions down. So realtors are going to have to do these backroom conversations about commissions, and no one's going to know what they are. It's the opposite of transparency, and it's just a real shame that the plaintiffs in front of the jury gaslighted them, and honestly, to the benefit of the corporate homeowners and the Wall Street hedge funds who are going to make a lot more money by making things more opaque and less transparent.
So who are the winners in the case?
Well, clearly the plaintiffs in the case, the actual plaintiffs, are big winners. The attorneys who brought the case and are going to bring subsequent cases are going to make hundreds of millions of dollars, where the actual plaintiffs in the case might make $100, right? That's the way the class action things work. I think the big winners are the corporate landlords who own a lot of homes, and now they can, on their websites, coach buyers, especially those first-time home buyers and military buyers, comes to our properties and don't bring an agent, right? So now the big Wall Street hedge funds don't have to pay for you, a first-time home buyer or a military member, to have expert representation.
Right.
Just come to us, and we've already
And
had.
you can get totally snowed over.
And we have seen that even when you're an agent for a buyer, they're trying to bully the buyer.
Yep.
And we're going to see that more and more. And
the buyers are not winning in this case.
Oh no, no chance. And that's the argument has been made that prices are going to drop. That's just that's economics. If there's low supply and high demand, it doesn't matter that you're saving the sellers a potential commission that they think, that's what was articulated in the articles, that they're going to save money. They're not. They're not cutting prices, not once.
Right. Buyers think they're saving money by sellers lowering their prices. They're not lowering their prices, and now you still have high prices and no representation.
Oh yeah, it's terrible.
In the olden days, back in your day, agents kind of were the gatekeepers of the MLS, and they kind of operated that way. I think that a lot of agents put their own value in that, but that's not how it is now at all. And so I want to talk a little bit about how do we as buyers agents communicate our value to buyers, because I feel like it's in our expertise.
Well, I think every real estate agent's going to be a little bit different, and scenarios are going to call for different explanations. There's certainly been a model over the last 10 years of just meeting a home buyer at the home they're looking at, right?
Right.
They find it online and they see it, and they've been coached by some of the website portals that any real estate agent will do, right? Just show up. And I think that that's, to me, one of the winning things about this is now great agents like yourself are going to be able to say to someone, hey, listen, hold up. I don't just walk you through this house.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to you about strategies on how to win an offer in a competitive situation.
Absolutely.
I'm going to coach you through different lenders you can trust to potentially get you to the closing date.
Yeah.
I'm going to help you set up the proper inspections so that those things can be done. Then I'm going to review the inspection report with you and go over things that are cost effective to have them do. Maybe you want to control the quality of the repair, so maybe you want a credit for that. I'm going to help you prepare the legal document to ask for those repairs to be done.
So you're hiring an agent not for, hey, can you come open a door for me and show me this house? It's everything that happens after you find the home.
Actually, the reason why you get paid what you do is because of the years of experience you have and the choice you made to get into a business, that you don't get a paycheck every 2 weeks. Right? All of the stuff you've learned through the training, the experiences, the seminars, everything along the way.
That don't happen.
Oh, right. That you get to bring to the table so that buyer, especially a first-time home buyer or military member, gets to learn from your experiences versus learning the hard way themselves.
For every contract that happens with me, there's probably 2 or 3 that don't.
Sure.
And those are all learning experiences for me.
And I really think that the value that a real estate agent brings to the table for most home buyers and sellers can literally be showcased in the experience that you've had and the vendors that you know, and hopefully the seamless nature you're able to overcome problems that are inevitably going to creep up along the way.
Right.
And I think that is a real important thing, that an agent be able to convey their value to both a buyer and a seller, and the
Right.
environment is going to be such, especially with buyer broker agreements needing to be signed now, which is new. And this is a nationwide thing, that buyers are going to actually have to sign basically, like a listing agreement. A seller signs a listing agreement with an agent.
Yep.
A buyer is going to sign a buying agreement.
We're going steady. We're an
right.
item. We're working together. We're a thing.
Right.
And let's go look at this house. But I can't show you that house if we don't say we're a thing.
Right. We have to sign a marriage certificate.
Yeah.
And this is the marriage certificate.
Right.
And this
Whereas
is what it is.
so many times when I meet a buyer and like, okay, let's go see this house, I know that I'm supposed to have this form signed. But at the same time, I go, if I'm not doing my job and you don't want to work with me, then let's not work together, because I don't want to work with somebody who doesn't want to work with me, and I want you to work with an agent that you feel is doing the best job for you. And so I have never really pushed a buyer broker agreement, because I want people to work with me because they want to work with me, and I'm going to work my ass off to keep them as my client. But there's never been that requirement
That's right.
legally to have. And now I've got to coach my buyers to say, hey, I cannot just show you a house. We need to have a discussion about my value, what my value brings, and how I get paid before we can go see any home. And that's a hard conversation to have.
It can be a hard conversation to have if you have imposter syndrome. Okay, so if you have imposter syndrome and you don't believe in the quality of the work and the value that you provide.
I do.
Right.
I do. It's hard when you're meeting like a new client. Let's say you're meeting a Joe Schmo who just found you through Instagram, and now, okay, we're going steady, and here's everything I do for you, and here's how I get paid. It's so much easier to build the relationship. So many agents build that relationship on the showings that now we have to kind of backpedal a little bit. We need to build the relationship a little bit before we go see the home, and then continue to build it after.
But to be fair, this is good for agents too. In the previous mantra where these weren't required to be signed, how many times have you been working with a buyer, invested a lot of time, effort, energy, anxieties into handling their ups and downs and the things they're looking for, and then lo and behold, they just disappear off the face of the earth, and they go with someone else, or they bought from a builder who told them that it would be cheaper to go without you, although we know that
honestly,
never is the case.
Honestly, this hasn't happened to me that much, thankfully, because they love me.
But it does happen.
It definitely does.
About it. And so now, with a buyer seeing that they're signing on to this relationship with you as well, if I were sitting in front of a buyer and they said, yeah, I'm not going to sign that, I would thank them.
Yeah,
I would say thank you, because I'd rather learn that now.
The litmus test.
Because a lot of the buyers, unfortunately, are going to think that, oh, I only have to sign it with you. I don't have to sign with anyone else. Now we're going to be like, listen, this is law. Well, it's not really law. It's a rule we have to follow. And you're going to have to sign this with whoever you work with. Even if you go directly to a listing broker, they have to make you sign this document, and then they get to beat you up, because if they're a single agent to the seller, like I mentioned before, you're walking into a buzzsaw. Their job is to negotiate on behalf of their seller, not you.